Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch Show, Alec Lace joins me from New Jersey to talk about 2025, what took place, Trump, and in 2026, what will happen. Stay tuned because it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. You got a good program coming in front of you. I got Alec Lace. He's going to be joining me. We're going to be talking about some really fun stuff about, reviewing 2025. What happened? Was it a good year for everybody? Was it a good year for Trump? Was it not? What's 2026 going to look like? So we're going to get into the nitty gritty. Alec has done a lot down in Washington, D.C. this year, and we're going to share that with you. But I just want to say that I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Our family had a great Christmas. And so, but I'm happy it's over, to be honest, and looking forward to get through this next week, and then just go into 2026 with a vengeance. We got to make this a great year upcoming. And so it's going to take all of us. It's going to take you, me, Alec Lace, everybody, to make sure we get the message out about what conservatism is all about and about how important it is to fight for the United States of America. So with that being said, let me remind everybody, if you want to join Team DML, it means you never miss a show. You get all the newsletters. You can buy DML CBD for $20. We're going to keep that going for as long as the hemp ban is not in place. And even if they lift it, I'm going to keep it like that forever. But you got to be a member to do it. So if you just want it for $20 a year, it's nothing. You want to support us. You want to help us continue to grow. Please go to teamdml.com, and for a whole year, you could be a member for $20. We have other memberships as well, that there's other perks in there, but you get so much. All the podcasts, everything that we put out in terms of content, you'll have access to. So plus live chat with other members. We've got thousands of members. So please give it a look. It would really help us grab some momentum if you were to join us. I don't get to make any money on it myself. It's something that keeps us going, and it helps me pay my family and my staff. And so with that being said, teamdml.com, I need you to join there. If you're already a member, well, just stick in there. You could either upgrade, downgrade, whatever. That's that, teamdml.com. And when you get there, after you become a member, we do have it where you could get an app. It's a free app, the Team DML app. My son Ryan built it. It's all good to go. So without further ado, here is Alec Lace. So I wanted to have you on, and the new year is upon us, and I wanted to go over what you thought, what we thought together. Maybe do a little debate here, if there are places where we disagree, on what the first year was like so far for the Trump administration. I mean, and the fact, we follow each other, so we get to check out what the one is doing, the other one's doing. We go back and forth with our text messages. I mean, you've done everything from participating down in the press room, and I've seen you doing a lot of traveling, showing up to different events and stuff like that. So I know you got your finger on the pulse of how people feel at these events. And so, you're always pretty honest, so I know I get an honesty from you. Let's start backwards. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what would you grade the first year of Trump 2.0?
I would honestly say I would give him an 8 for myself. I rate him high. I think he's been good. I think he's got a lot accomplished, despite the fact of all the arrows and the nonsense and the noise that he's had to deal with, especially within Congress, not getting his people approved. I mean, there's been a lot of roadblocks in the way of Trump, but I think he's been able to set the groundwork for what we're going to see in 2026 as the second year unfolds. And hopefully, if it looks the way it does, I think the economy is going to be on fire in 2026 because of everything he's been able to do this year.
It's funny you say that, Alec, because I pride myself on being able to sort of forecast what's coming and how it's coming. And I have gone sort of back and forth. When it was in the beginning of the year, February, March, April, and he was talking about tariffs and people were up in arms, even Senator Rand Paul saying this is a tax on people, and you had all these financial experts saying it was going to be Armageddon. I said, no, it's not going to be Armageddon. I said, you watch. By August, we're going to start to see the results of this. And I think we were. And I think we have. And so in that vein, I was correct. The part that I didn't expect, and the part that concerns me, that the momentum that he may have building, even though inflation's kind of flat from where he took it over to where it is now, there are things that are going down. Gasoline's down. There are some other expenses that have dropped. Other expenses have gone up. But the one big expense that Americans are going to feel, and it is colossal, is the healthcare issue. Now, I know in your core job, working for the rails, you get your health insurance paid for. But when you're a guy like me, I got to pay for my own insurance. And the jump from what I was paying to what I'm going to be paying is just so astronomical that if you took the savings I have in gasoline, eggs, you name it, across the platform, all of those little savings that come in chunks don't offset the huge jump I have in healthcare costs. And I fear that is going to be the Achilles heel that's going to come up and bite him in the buttocks.
There's no question that the medical insurance is a disaster in the country, and the Obamacare has been a disaster. Now, yeah, I work for the railroad. I still pay into my medical insurance, even though that I'm working there, and my entire thing has changed since the Obamacare, even from my, what do you call it? The when you go and you pay the deposit, the deductible, right? From the deductible to the premiums, everything has gone up. To the doctors I can use, everything has changed. So there has been a shift for that too. But nobody seems to have an answer for this. I just did an interview there with Senator Rick Scott, who's got this More Affordable Care Act. And so, according to him, he seems like, this is going to be the answer. It's not to repeal and replace Obamacare, but it's to give you the option of this or Obamacare. And to be honest, I'm an amateur when it comes to the medical insurance. I don't know the intricacies of all that, what has to happen. I know that the left wants everybody to have free health care. I know that that's not attainable. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if the Trump administration has the solution for it. I just know that it's a mess. But I do know that getting the illegal aliens out of the country and the people that are committing fraud on our insurance system, if we can wipe some of that out, because what they're finding with the fraud inside of the Medicaid system is insane. It's billions of dollars. So if we can get rid of that, I think that frees up the opportunity for real Americans to get better access to health care.
No, listen, no doubt whatsoever. I mean, it's amazing, Alec. It's sometimes I'm as happy as I am sort of frustrated from my own egotistical standpoint that all the things that I have been screaming about for years, and we know each other now for at least 3 or 4. So all the things that I've been screaming about for years are finally coming to the forefront, and people are starting to recognize them. For instance, if you go back to Trump 1.0, he was screaming, build the wall, build the wall. And I always said, the wall's like a Band-Aid on cancer. It's going to get us nowhere. We don't need it. Turn off the incentives, turn off the asylum claim stuff. And what did he do? This time, he didn't try to get a wall done. He just changed the rules. And without a wall being built, or even a wall, nobody even says the word wall anymore, right? And what? We've had 8 months, 9 months of no illegals coming across. So, well, I should say no coming across like the way they used to. They're still coming in illegally. They're going back to the old methods. But with that said, I've always said we've got to cut down on immigration, if not cut it completely off. The legal immigration, we can't vet people. Now, all of a sudden, after TPUSA, they just did the poll, 90% of people are saying they want there to be a complete shutdown of all immigration into the country. So we are starting to see, and I would give Trump a 7-8 on immigration. We are starting to see the sentiment in terms of people, how they feel about immigration, changing to a more hawkish, hard-nosed approach. And what you're saying is completely 100% true. If by means of stopping the inflow coming in, if Trump could do a little bit of a better job of getting them out, which I think he can, and if we could stop taking in so many people, 1.2 million a year legally, then another 12 million on visas who wind up coming and overstaying, if we can stop that, the prices of everything, health insurance would go down because you wouldn't have your emergency room dealt with like a primary care physician. The education costs would go down because it costs 25 to 50% more to teach these kids how to speak English than it does, how to teach a kid who speaks English how to be smart. So you would see your property tax go down. I mean, I could go down the list and it would definitely open things up in terms of people making more money and saving more money. But Alec, we're not talking about 1 million people. We're talking about 40 million people in this country, to where we've only gotten rid of 2.5 million. And we're talking about, like I said, if you add the visas and the legal green cards, we're talking about 13 million people coming into this country every single year. It is like literally trying to stop the ocean from hitting the sand.
It reminds me so much like when I would talk about, some of the other issues socially that we have, and I would tie them all into the fatherless crisis, where you could tie everything in, like all this teenage suicide, teenage pregnancy, high school dropouts, all these things. And I would say you could tie it to this one thing, which is the fatherless crisis. It's the same with all these things that you mentioned in our country. You could tie them all to illegal immigration. That is the one thing that is the nucleus of all of these other things that we're trying to fix. Now, I want to point out too, it also goes to the safety of our kids in this country, because one of the most eye-opening things this year to me, Dennis, was being in that White House press briefing room when Caroline Leavitt was going through and showing the pictures of all of these illegal aliens and what they did to children, all these child predators. And I'm not going to get into the viciousness of it, but it was like a rated R movie, what she was saying. And I'm looking around the briefing room, like almost as if like, man, like we should like almost have like a moment of silence for this, because this was so brutal and barbaric what she was reading. And it washed over the people in that press corps as if they walked right through it. It didn't even faze them. They're right back with the question about Trump deporting these people without due process and sticking up for the illegals. CNN, even when they showed, because they had on the White House lawn, they had all of the pictures of these illegal immigrants that they arrested. They put these Post-its out there, like these big, little poster boards. And CNN blurs out the faces. Talk about redacting the people. So they don't care about the children. And so many kids have been victimized because of this. It's one of the biggest issues that we've had. And every time the story comes up, it's almost like, well, where is all the sympathy for the children? They're like, oh, the Epstein victims. Well, if you really care about victims of children that are being sexually abused, wouldn't you want to get all these criminal illegals out of the country? No, they didn't even sniff or bat an eye when she said that.
So if you're going to put, and I think we both, am I saying that we're in agreement that his number one accomplishment has probably been the border security issue? All right,
yeah,
we agree
number one. Yeah, number one.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Number two, and I don't know if you and I are so on the same page. We're pretty close. Maybe the economy, in terms of being able to prove that tariffs are the smart play. But I mean, I don't know. I get the sense that you think the economy is better than I think it is, because I hear a lot of people still say they're not feeling the benefits of whatever it is that Trump is talking about, how things are better.
It's funny because I was there on Liberation Day. I was in the Rose Garden when he came out with that whole thing. And it was actually, I think, the last time he did something before they, wiped out the lawn and put the concrete down, so it might have been the last event there. But that was, the media was crushing him on that. They mocked it, Liberation Day and all that. I think we'll see the effects of that, yes. But for me, I have a family of 6. I do the food shopping every week here. And there's no question that I can get my bill down cheaper now than I could under Joe Biden. Now, there's certain things that still haven't come down. I'm a railroader, so I'm cheap. And so I don't buy it if it ain't on sale. I don't care what the kids say. They say, oh, Dad, if it ain't on sale, we ain't getting it. But even with doing all of that, I couldn't get my bill down under Joe Biden to where I have it right now. Now, there's some things that are higher, like beef. And I had Daniel Turner, who's does Power to Future. He's an energy guy, explaining why the price of beef is still consistently high, being that the cows that are being used now are from 2020, 2021. And so as those cows, it takes 3-4 years for them to come to the market where they butcher them and put them out. They were being fed under the high inflation rates, everything that was happening with those cows throughout that process. That price is baked into those cows. And that's why you're still seeing the residual of the beef prices, what they are. But the other things that we've seen that have dropped, like chicken and seafood and all these other things, have been the gas prices alone. The fact that they've dropped will eventually, hopefully, another thing too, Dennis, once people people know that they can get you for a certain price. Very rarely do they want to lower that price now, even though they're saving money. So if they've got you committed to buying something at a higher price, they're going to gouge you. And they're not, even though that they're going to save more, they say, well, we already got this guy committed to paying a certain amount for chicken. Why are we going to lower it? We'll just keep doing the same thing. We'll hammer him and take the extra profit. So I do think we're going to see a better, I think the economy is better. The inflation, obviously not what it was. But it's not where it needs to be. It's not where I hoped it would be 1 year into the Trump presidency, but I think it's better than it was, and I think we're headed on the right path.
All right. So instead of being fortune tellers and say, I'll give him a 7 or an 8 based on what I think is coming, let's go a little deeper into things that have already happened. If you had to give him criticism on what he has either failed to do or what he's done wrong, what's the top thing that pops out of your head that where you may not admit it on your show or when you're at the press room, but, when you're talking to your wife on the pillow, you say, damn it, why does he keep on doing this? What would your point of reference be there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think I wanted to see, more arrests, I guess I would say. I wanted to see more, what they would call revenge or retribution. I wanted to see some kind of penalty being paid for what they did, especially during COVID, especially during, I think the number one thing I've always disagreed with Trump on was always his handling of the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. I've always disagreed with him on that. That's never been a question. I've always challenged that. And he stopped actually, towards the end of 2024, the second half of his, what do you call it, parades or rallies, he never mentioned it anymore because he used to say he used to Operation Warp Speed, one of the greatest accomplishments. And he stopped that because I think he realized that his base was very much against that entire thing. But I think seeing more of that, getting more of those people to pay a price is what lacked most for me this year. I would have liked to have seen more people have to be held to accountability. And the other thing, really, it's not him that the criticism, it's getting his executive orders codified. Like we don't have any of the election integrity stuff locked down yet. We don't have voter ID. That should be, I would have thought by now we would have voter ID mandatory in all 50 states. That didn't happen. One day voting, paper ballots, none of that has come into fruition, not mostly because of his fault, but because we don't have a GOP with a spine that's willing to nuke the filibuster and slam this stuff in, because once the Democrats get it, it's going to be no holds barred. So I think that would be like my biggest criticism.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point there you made toward the latter part, you really have to wonder what happens in Washington, D.C., because in one breath, Trump's presidency may be the most transparent in the sense that he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut when he's supposed to, right? He's just got somewhat diarrhea of the mouth. And I don't say that as a negative sort of aspect. It just means that, he says what he wants to say, and he's not going to be silenced. And so sometimes you sit there and you hear him say, we're going to lock this one up. We got to go get this one. We got to get this one. You're like, all right, well, why isn't it happening? And so then you look at somebody like Pam Bondi, who I've always looked at as being somebody who was a warrior for the truth. She was a defender of Trump at all given points. And you're like, why isn't she pulling the trigger on some of this stuff? It just seems like it's low-hanging fruit that it would be so easy. And so you got to wonder what's happening behind those plays. You got Dan Bongino, who's quitting the FBI. I mean, this is a guy who gave away, if you think about it, he was at the 1 yard line about to go in for the touchdown. He could have been replacing Rush Limbaugh. I mean, his numbers on Rumble were just insanity. I mean, everything was lining up for him. He's a big owner in Rumble, so he's got tons of money. I mean, he could have really catapulted himself. And so he decided, no, I'm going to go to the FBI because I want to help fight for my country. And here he is less than a year in the job and saying, hey, I'm getting out. That to me says blatantly, you can't fix this machine. It's too broken. And then you talk about, let me just finish off. Then you talk about with the GOP that they're not getting things through. And I say to myself, there's a part of me that wants to blame Trump, that he's not taking Pam Bondi in his office. He's not taking Mike Johnson in his office and saying, I don't know what's up your ass, but you've got about 4 hours to get it fixed, or else your name's starting to go on Truth Social. And I don't mean just like I've been doing to you, Pam. I mean, you're gone. And so the fact that we're not getting anything done is a mystery to me on like who to blame, because at one point you got to always blame the leader. And at the same point is you're wondering whether or not there's just such an ocean against him that he's almost helpless in the fact that, he's just trying to get through the day.
There is a point of, like, how he puts the presidential portraits up outside the Rose Garden. He's got the auto pen for Biden. Like, we love that. Like, that's fun. It's cool to do that. But where is the penalty for doing that? Where are these pardons that he didn't even know about? Like, where is the follow through on that? I get what you're saying. With Dan Bongino, I will say that I had it from a very, very reliable source. The minute that Dan Bongino took that position, that he was always going to get out at the end of the year. That was never in question. That was, so the people on the inside of him knew that he was going to do it for 1 year. I don't think he would have done it at all, but I think the fact that he was offered it, he couldn't say no to it. So he automatically, as far as I know, and I trust the person that told me this, he was going to get out in December no matter what was going to happen. And I heard that way back in the beginning of the year when he first got the position. So I don't think that has to say as much. Not to say that there aren't problems inside that FBI.
Well, then, of course, I'm not going to ask you who told you, but I mean, can we extrapolate on that for a second? Because I have a lot of respect for Bongino in the sense that he's very passionate and, he's a go-get-'em guy. And when he decided to take that job, I said to myself, why is he doing it for, man? Yeah. First of all, he's got 2 little kids, right? We just started this conversation off with, now your kids are driving. I mean, just yesterday you were changing their diapers, right? So you want to be gone in Washington, D.C. and not see your kids? And like I said, I mean, from a business standpoint, I watch these things out of admiration, and I'm like, wow, everything's lining up for this guy. And now all of a sudden he's going to give it away. What's the point of going there for 1 year? Was it, hey, I'm going to go there and get these Epstein files released, or I'm going to go there and I'm going to get Fauci and everybody else I can? And then when he figured out that he couldn't do it after a year, he says, I'm out of here. I mean, what's the point of taking a job for, to be quite honest, 10 months?
I think the honor of being asked by President Donald Trump to work in the administration, you can't turn down. I think it was a position where he was like, I don't think I could turn down. How do you just say no? I mean, especially after you've been pumping your whole show and audience over all this. Now you're asked to be a part of the solution. I think he was in a position where he could. Obviously, one of the very first interviews he even did on Fox, he talked about being away from his family, being away from his kids, and you could see it was tearing him up. And I would imagine, too, somebody like Pete Hegseth also. I mean, these are guys that turn down millions of dollars a year to go now and get nothing but scrutinized, and their family to be tormented. Sean Duffy, another friend of mine that I was on all the time with at Fox, guys making boatloads of money and having an easy piece of the pie, and he's giving that up to go inside. So there's a lot to be said for that. It wasn't like these guys were pulled from within inside the organizations and promoted. These are guys that were pulled out of high-paying jobs to come in and take, a lesser pay, and now to be exposed to the media and to the left and to these lunatics out there. I give them a lot of credit for that, but I do believe Dan Bongino did it because he was honored to get the position and didn't want to say no. That's my personal opinion on that.
Well, you got to hope that that's the case, because if that is the case, then there is some promise in the sense that maybe things can get done, but he just doesn't want to stick around to do it. I also think the other thing, too, is, I mean, Dan Bongino is a type A personality, and it's very hard to be the backup shortstop when you think
good point.
When you think you should be the shortstop, but you got too much respect for the other guy who's there already. So you just say, all right, well, when you need me, you pull me in. And so I think after a while, maybe it gets a little boring, I think the other thing, I want to get to in a second, which is the infighting. I think he sees an opportunity right now with all this infighting to really skyrocket. But before I get into that, and that's our next step, I do want to tell you what I am most disappointed about with Trump, because, see, like you, yes, I wanted to see more action take place. I would have thought his team would have done that. I would have thought the GOP would want to coalesce and do that, because it would basically bury the left for a while. And instead, it hasn't been done. And to your point, voter ID hasn't been solved. Election integrity hasn't been solved. It's almost like you would think that the Republican Party isn't doing these things purely because they want to sabotage Trump. They just want to get rid of him, and they say this is the best way to get rid of him. We're going to do it in such a cunning way where nobody will ever be able to detect what we're doing. Well, I do. So, I mean, I'm disappointed there, but I don't blame that per se on him. What I do blame on him is I was grossly impacted in the heart and mentally when Trump met with the president of Syria, who was a $10 million bounty-headed, Islamic terrorist. Then not a week goes by, you got the Prince of Saudi Arabia coming in. Both of them get the red carpet. Then he's got Mamdani in the office, and treating him like he's the next Miss USA pageant winner. And, I'm like, holy cow. I mean, he's normalizing all three of these guys. Mamdani, I think, was just sitting there laughing to himself. Now Mamdani's going to take New York City and turn it into, no joke, Mecca. I mean, you're going to know this better than I, because I never go to New York City anymore, and I have no plan for the rest of my life to go there. I think we've lost that city to the jihadis. And so I look at him like, Trump, what are you doing? Why are you normalizing this? And so to me, that is Trump's biggest mistake. And I wonder whether or not it's a culmination of he does a lot of business over there with his sons. And as much as he's supposed to distance himself from that as the president, he can't, because at the end of the day, that's his family business. And he's put his whole life into that. And then the last part with Mamdani, I think he probably was just trying to save some face, in the sense that I still got properties in New York City, and maybe if I'm a little bit nicer to this guy, he won't bust my chops about, what my buildings are, because I can't figure out another reason why he did what he did, Alec.
Yeah, I think Trump's business is solid, and it's going to be good no matter what happens. I don't think Trump's threatened on the Trump organization failing anytime soon. He's got properties all over the world. He doesn't need it. So, I mean, I don't see that he needs to schmooze Mamdani to make a few extra bucks. I don't buy into that. I think what he does.
No. I meant that on the Saudi and the Qatar.
And the Saudi and Qatar. I agree.
And Syria. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll get to the Syria point in a second. But I think with Mamdani, like you said, Mamdani's coming in whether Trump had him there or not. Mamdani's already set in stone. He's going to be the mayor of that city. They voted in socialism. You vote in a communist. The only way you can get out, you got to shoot your way out of that. I mean, they are in a bad spot, New York. But I think what Trump does was, I think he kind of made Mamdani look like a fool to his followers, who Mamdani talked all that stuff, turn up the volume. And then he's there in the opportunity with Trump, and he's smiling and shaking his hand, and yes, Trump. And he looked weak to his followers, who thought he was going to go in there guns blazing and tell Trump who he was. He didn't do that. So it kind of neutered him a little bit to his fan base that thought he was all that. And it's like, okay, well, you talked all that game. You went in there and you were a lapdog in front of Trump, and you didn't shoot your mouth off like you did on the campaign trail. So I don't think Trump really had anything to lose by bringing Mamdani in there. He's going to be the mayor anyway. The thing with Syria, I agree. I don't like the way that looks. The only thing I could think of with that would be keep your enemies close. Type of deal. I don't like anything to do with that entire region, Dennis. I don't like even this. I'm not a geopolitical guy. I'm not a foreign news correspondent guy. I don't like the Middle East. I would be just as happy as if we pulled all of our people, all of our assets out of the Middle East and never set a toe in the desert ever again. I would be more than happy with that outcome. So I don't like any of it. Why are we giving millions of dollars every week to the Taliban now? Why does that happen? We fought these guys for 20 years, and now we're giving them money. So I don't know enough to know why he's doing any of that, to be honest with you. I don't have my finger on the pulse of anything geopolitical. I like to focus here on what's happening in this country, and more intelligent people than me can figure that out. The only thing I would think is keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer type of deal is maybe why he's doing something like that.
That's probably the one spot where you and I heavily disagree. I heavily disagree with you on how Mamdani came off, and in my feeling is Mamdani won that round one goes to Mamdani because they both said horrible things about each other. They both met with each other, and Mamdani didn't get belittled in front of Trump, and so it was Trump's job to punch down, and he didn't, almost as if he was afraid to punch down. And so Mamdani stood his ground. He went up against Mike Tyson, if you will, and he walked out with a smile on his face. And when he went back to New York, he's hiring people who have criminal records and who are friggin' anti-Jew in every position. So he's actually getting what I believe is the last laugh. The other thing, too, is you have to understand deeply about how Muslims perform. They have a thing called taqiyya. And taqiyya allows you in the Muslim religion to lie, cheat, and steal, do whatever you have to do to further advance jihad. Whereas you and I, as Christians, Catholics, our religion tells us you can't lie. So we're at a disadvantage there, if you think about it, to where it's like they have a gun and we have a knife, right? So I think that he played that game as well as he could. And see, if I were Trump, I wouldn't even have let him in the White House. And if I was going to let him in the White House, I wasn't going to give him a platform. That was it. No press conference. All right, you met with me. Now you go home. I'm going to quiet and silence this guy. But it's two different approaches. We'll see. Trump usually finds a way to wiggle out of everything and make it into a win. So I'm going to hope that there is some kind of plan there that we don't understand it will come out. But, you bring up a really good point, and that's where I want to go into about the Middle East. Because when I hear you just speak about how you'd like to remove all assets, both financial and, hard assets and human feet, and get them home, and let's just focus on what's going on here in the U.S. because we've got ourselves a lot of problems. You talk about it on your show. I talk about my show every single day. And that is what is called, Alec, America First. But America First has been hijacked by some of the top podcasters in the country who have made America First this battle of being pro or anti-Israel. So if you're America First, that means you hate Israel. No, if you're America First, it means you love Israel. And so all of a sudden, Israel is the tug of war game. And meanwhile, it's like, hey, guys, is anybody going to get up on stage at TPUSA on AmFest and talk about the issues we need to solve here in the United States, or are we just going to talk about how we're going to hate on each other? And so when I look forward in 2026, Alec, what I see a war that's not going to get any better. I see a splintering of the conservative side of the aisle, if you will, not Republicans, conservatives. And so I wonder what your take is on that, because in one corner, you've got Megyn Kelly defending Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and to a certain degree, that kind of like swells out into the Steve Bannon. You could even put Nick Fuentes in that side, which is I'm anti-Israel or I'm going to defend the people who are anti-Israel. Then on the other side, you've got the Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and a bunch of other actors who same thing are going to say like, no, I'm pro-Israel. And this battle is ensuing. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance is going to get stuck in the middle of that whole thing. What is your take? Where do you see that headed in 2026, both from a inside the White House walls? Let's call it this way. Let's call ourselves influencers instead of podcasters, right? So we're influencers, and then you got politicians. How do you see that divide impacting both sides?
I think it's going to get worse. I mean, in this next year. And then I think, it's going to, affect the midterms for us. And then I think it'll start to get better after the damage is done. I think that's what I think. I think it's going to play its course out this year. And then after the midterms, I think it stops and turns around. And I think it's settled. But yeah, it's either pro-Israel or anti-Israel. And it seems like you have to make a stance on where do you lie? Are you pro? It's not about being pro-American anymore with this entire thing. It's about how do you feel about Israel? The whole thing has been framed that way. And there's aspects to it that make sense when you listen to how people are like, for instance, the money that is coming in from Israel and paying for our congressmen and our senators, foreign money that comes in. I agree with the fact impact. Yeah, I agree with the fact that we shouldn't have any foreign influence on our politicians. Like they should not be allowed to donate to certain campaigns and stuff like that. So I agree with some aspects of that. I think that it's almost the same as like when this whole thing was going on with Israel and Palestine, where it was like, which children do you want to see die? Palestinian children or Israel children? If you say you don't want to see any children die, you're an anti-Semite or you're an Islamophobic, and it was like you can't win that argument. So it's, to me, the whole thing is pretty stupid. And it's like, and I look at it from an American side of this, like almost like when you have like people like Nick Fuentes, who blew up huge this year. I mean he was big, but he blew up this year. I think like those whole when you like idolize Hitler or you say Hitler was cool or something like that, I don't look at it from a standpoint of the Jewish people would look at it like it was a Holocaust and they lost people. I look at it from America. Dude, my whole family fought against that guy. My whole family fought against all them things. So what you're basically saying is that guy was cool who all my ancestors died fighting. Like, it's almost like saying today Osama bin Laden was cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I hear. I don't hear it from like the Jewish point of it. I hear it from the American point of it. Like, I got a long lineage of people that fought against these people in Germany. Whether you like, same thing with the do I think we should have been there in the 20 years in the GWAT? No. Does that minimize the sacrifice that our soldiers made fighting over there? Absolutely not. Same thing with so you could argue, should we have been over there? Whether or not, it's regardless. We were there. Our people did die, and this is who they were fighting. And if you're going to wear the shirt of the team that my family died fighting, well, I'm going to be against what you have to say. And that's kind of the way I look at that whole thing.
All right, so let me press back on you because I'm not just going to let you escape this one too easy. I just think it's too interesting of a conversation. So you said something, I wrote it down. You said you don't think it's going to get any better, but then after the midterms, it does get better. I'm assuming what you're saying in that, you could just give me yes or no, we lose the midterms, and so we have to get our act together. Yes?
Yes. That is what I'm saying. And I want to point this out too, Dennis, is that the people that mostly the people that you are seeing that are saying anti-Israel, you can't be America first, are anti-Trump. And that's what they are. They're mostly anti-Trump, because if you look at Trump, since 2016, since the first day he came down the escalator, he's been pro-Israel. Yes. During his first administration, he put the freaking embassy in Jerusalem, the capital in Jerusalem there. He was always pro-Israel. So to see somebody like Nick Fuentes, who got his name because of Trump, to see Megyn Kelly, all these people that came up, they rode the Trump coattails in 2016. We're Trump, America first, this and that. Now they're saying, oh, Trump turned his back on the country because he's pro-Israel. No, you changed your opinion. Trump has been always consistent. He's always been pro-Israel. That's never changed. You were all over him in 2016 and 2020, stolen election and all that stuff. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. Trump supports Israel? How dare he? He's not America first anymore. Well, you're a retard. I mean, that's really the only way you can look at it. You don't make any sense then, because Trump's been consistent the whole way through. You changed.
You're Alec, you're spot on correct. So now you take it the next step. So there is this fraction in the influencer side, and it is either pro-Israel or I'm going to say Muslim, because what I find when I post on social media, and you know me, I'm a big, huge anti-Islam guy. So I'm always going to go to the well to what I know best. And so when I post up, if I see a video of a Hindu guy getting burned to death, lynched by a group of Muslims, I put it up and say, this is Islam. And the 30 responses I'll get back on X, 29 of them are, did you get your $7,000 check yet from the Israeli government? Did you, you're a freaking Jew, Lynch, or whatever, And then you get that. And then if I go to Facebook, I get it, albeit less, but it's the same thing. And it's always the same talking point. And it says to me that this is a concerted effort, that the big bad boogeyman that's creating this whole thing, this anti-Jew movement, if you will, is the collection of Qatar, the whole Muslim world, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Iranians, they're all working for the same thing, which is jihad. And they have figured out that the way to end Israel is to create a wedge between Israel and the United States. And once they conquer Israel, they know they can't beat us in a war. So what do they want to do? They want to take us over from within. And I know that that's what's happening. We've already lost towns like Dearborn. We're losing the city of New York. We'll probably wind up losing the state of Minnesota to Islam. And that's the way this country is going. So instead of saying, hey, Alec, why don't you move to Florida because it's a conservative haven versus living in that New Jersey Democrat haven, now it's going to be, hey, Alec, why don't you move to Florida where Christianity is alive versus New Jersey, which is now Islamic State. And that's the way we're headed. And I think by the time people look up and recognize that, they're going to say, whoa, Israel wasn't our enemy. It was the Islamics that were our enemy. They made us turn our eye this way. And then when you're going to look at who did that, you're going to look at the Megyn Kellys, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson's, Nick Fuentes, because their audiences have been so huge lately. I can't understand it. Maybe it's just because people love train wrecks. They love to look at the car wrecks on the side of the road, that they are convincing people that this is the direction you need to go in. I find it very dangerous. So to that end, if this split plus an economy that is okay, even if it does go up like you think it does, you're still going to have what I'm saying is the healthcare issue in terms of expenses. So if we do lose the midterms, and that's when everybody wakes up and says, holy cow, they just impeached Trump. Great, we won't remove him because we still got the Senate. But we're going to lose 2028. We need to come together. Question for you is an opinion. What side gives up? So does the Tuckers and everybody say, hey, for the good of the United States, we're going to stop talking about being anti-Israel and go back to being pro-conservative? Or is it that finally the ones who are protecting Israel said, you know what, I'm not even having this conversation anymore? I mean, how does it come together again? Because I don't see how the magic pill is swallowed.
I don't want to be honest. This is just my guesstimate here too. I don't know how this thing resolves either. I just think that, if it goes the way it goes now, we get blown out in the midterms. I think that's when the louder voices of the sense of urgency is like, we need to forget about this nonsense and focus on what's happening in here in our country. And like you said, the Muslim invasion, I think it was like, one of the Taliban famous quotes is like, the Americans have all the fancy watches, but we have all the time. And they take their time, they infiltrate this country, and they are growing in this country. Americans aren't having children. They're not getting married. We're not populating. Muslims are doing that when they get here. There's been a major problem of that. And even these people that are saying like, oh, we have to be anti-Israel, when they wake up in a neighborhood full of jihadists, they're going to be going, looking around like, who's my friend here? They don't care about you. And so we're in a major problem with all the people that have already infiltrated this country. What is interesting is what I can't figure out from the people that are on the anti-Israel side, and that Israel owns our government, Israel owns our media. If that is the case, then why is all of the media, which is supposed to be owned by Israel, anti-Trump, who is the most pro-Israel president we've had? Why is that? I can't figure out, why would the media be working so hard to sabotage the guy that is in lockstep with Israel? According to them, they're like, Trump's owned by Israel and the media is owned by Israel. Well, then why is the media doing everything they can to undermine President Trump? So that, to me, doesn't compute and doesn't add up. So one of those is off. Either Trump's not owned by Israel or the media ain't owned by Israel, or neither of them are, because you can't say that they own both, because if they do, why are they doing everything they can to crush Trump?
Alec, that is such a fantastic point. And that's why this whole anti-pro-Israel thing doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why you have to peel back the onion and saying, what is freaking happening? And then when I look at how much, you talked before about AIPAC and how it is that, all these foreign interests are putting money into the politician coffers and campaigns. I want to remind you and everybody listening, I've been saying this a lot lately, I think this is just as good of a point as what you just made. It's not like AIPAC is the only lobbyist.
You've just writing something down.
I mean, Alec, if you take the amount of money that's coming from the Muslim world and being lobbied, it dwarfs AIPAC. And then what about all the lobbying here that goes from Big Pharma?
Yeah, that's what I just wrote down.
Yeah. I mean, why don't I have... instead of, you've seen it all over X, it's like, you got a politician's face and right next to that says AIPAC, $100,000. Well, where are we going to wind up seeing, Pfizer, $700,000? Why is everybody just pointing out on AIPAC? And that's when I know that this is a concerted effort. Somebody's pulling these strings, and they said, if we could get the top, if we could get Candace, and we could get Tucker, and we could get a lot of these people, wow. Look what we got. We own all of the colleges right now because the Muslims have put in $8 billion, Qatar and all these other $8 billion into our universities. And that's why when you saw last year all these rallies at Columbia and everything else like that, that's all bought and paid for by the Muslim world. So they got that. Then they got their lobbying. They're giving tons of money to every single last thing possible. They are buying this country. They're buying the country. And so, and then you hear Tucker Carlson, my God, Alec, I'm going to buy a house in Doha here in Qatar because I love the city and because I'm an American and I can. Whoa, if you're going to buy, what? You're going to buy in Sharia? where you can't practice Christianity unless you go and register. There's 6 churches in that whole entire country. It's all controlled. You're not allowed to do it. They treat women like freaking goats. You know, I just sit there and I say, there's got to be something. If I were to just peel back and keep peeling, we would find it. It's not coming from Tucker's heart. It's coming from a different place.
Yeah, I don't know. And all of a sudden, it seemed like it just torpedoed this year, like it exploded this year. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because all of these people, too, even Tucker, Tucker in his own right, he's had his success. But most of these people, they all got where they are. They have their platforms because of President Donald Trump. And as I said, he was always been pro-Israel, and they never had an issue with it. You never go back and look at Fox News where Tucker had a problem with Trump's making Jerusalem the embassy. He never seen any of that. Now all of a sudden it's, why is it now that you're so against it? And all of these people, the podcasters, they all came up because of Trump. That's how they got their name. And now I think what they see is that Trump's not running for re-election. And especially even people in the GOP, but the podcasters as well. It's now about trying to see where they're going to fit post-Trump, because Trump's reign is going to come to an end. He's eventually going to be out, even though, they tease he'll run for a third election and all that other stuff. But his reign's coming to an end, and they're all trying to lobby for a piece of where it's going to go. The other big part of this, too, Dennis, is that Charlie Kirk's assassination, probably the biggest moment of 2025, I would say.
Easy.
And what's happened in the wake of that has been just disheartening, just so sad to watch. Number one, from the left that cheered it and jeered it. And number two, from the way everyone's trying to hijack it on the right to say, this is what Charlie would have said. This is what it's just like, this is who killed Charlie. It's like, it's become such a disgrace what's happened to Charlie Kirk in his memory. But what happened was he left a void. You mentioned Dan Bongino. I would say, yes, probably the top number one guy in the podcast. Right underneath him or up there with him is Charlie Kirk, especially because Charlie had the Gen Z. He had all of them people listening to him, more so than they listened to Dan Bongino. He was more of a middle my age type guys listening to Dan Bongino. Charlie Kirk had all them young guys that were listening to him, and his death left this openness that everyone now is trying to lobby and grab a piece of that big pie. And I think that's why you're seeing so much of it now on fire.
Oh, listen, Alec, when I don't know how much of you watched of it. I mean, I gave it a little bit of time on day 1, day 2. I mean, the first out of the gate, what AmFest was a battle between egos, right? Ben Shapiro. I've never been a huge Ben Shapiro fan. I mean, his voice has always been like a little squeaky Mickey Mouse to me. And, I've always been sort of turned off by everything always comes back to Israel, even though I would consider myself to be more pro than anti-Israel. It's like, come on, Ben, let's talk about what we got here, But, I mean, that guy built himself. He built himself. Megyn Kelly's like, oh, yeah, I made him into a star. No, you didn't. That guy is self-made. He's brave. He stands up for what he believes in. Whether I like what he believes in or not doesn't matter. He always sticks to his convictions, right? So, all right, he liked DeSantis. DeSantis didn't win. All right, well, I'm going to go to the next guy who's Trump. I'm not going to go to Kamala Harris, right? So, but nonetheless, he's never been a liberal, nothing. He's right there. He's solid. Then 2 seconds later, you got Tucker Carlson coming in and just belittling Ben Shapiro. And then Steve Bannon's coming in calling Shapiro a cancer. Then Megyn Kelly's coming in and she's saying her stuff. And I'm saying, whoa, what are we teaching our young conservative minds here? That the Republican Party is all about infighting? This is what these kids are going to go home to? I thought a TPUSA like Charlie had it was about to take politics and Christianity, put it together, make a great message, and further that message on so we could snowball this thing. And now the snowball's turning into slush and it's breaking up. So when I look at it, to your point, and you say there's a huge void and there's everybody's trying to champion for their piece of Charlie's, legacy to get his audience somehow, my hope is that Dan Bongino, because he's got enough name recognition, and now when he comes back, he's going to be even bigger, I think, than beforehand, because everybody's going to tune in to see what he says first. Maybe he's the guy who realigns the ship, because this is what I was saying to you before. I think he's looking, whether your informant was right or wrong about, this was always the plan, that may be the narrative, Alec, that they're trying to establish. But even if it's not, right, it doesn't matter. It's what's happening. And I feel like he looked and said, there is a splintering. And from an opportunist standpoint and from a I love my country standpoint, I'm going to fill that void. So maybe Dan sets the next narrative to where it's like, hey, America First is what Alec Lace and Dennis Michael Lynch are talking about right now. And if you don't follow that trajectory, you're on the outskirts. I truly believe that's what we need. If we need somebody to fill that void, and Dan probably has the big enough name to get it done right away off off day one.
I would hope so, but I think too, it's like the Turning Point USA, all the infighting. If the Democrats had to be loving that, I mean, they had to absolutely love it and be in their glory, like watching this thing just turn into an ugly mess. But what's been interesting, Dennis, is being in a situation where I'll go to the White House, I'll be at the press briefing, I get on the train and I come back to work, and then I go on the railroad. And it's like the two dichotomies of those worlds, like all of the things that are happening over there, none of them care about when I go back to work. That's, I work with a big mess of different cultures and races and and none of them care about any of the things that we were just talking about over there at the White House that seem like they're so imperative and important. The working people that are they don't care about any of that stuff. Like everyone there is trying to make sure they're working overtime to try to be able to provide for their families. They want to try to save for a vacation that they're going to take them out. Like none of them are talking about Israel and Palestine. They could care less. Like that's not what the real people that are working day in and day out to support a family really care about when it comes down to it. It's what will sell clicks and likes and views in our world, but in the world of the regular working class people, it's tone deaf. They could care less about any of it.
Alec, that insight right there is just so perfect, because that's the thing about you that I still think offers a unique perspective. Is that for me, I'm so caught up in that world, and I don't get to deal with the normal people like you do. If you want to call it normal, right? The people who are just so filled with their day activities that they just look up and say, how much do I have to pay for healthcare? Who did this? You get to deal with them, and that's an incredible insight. So let me ask you, if you were to take that message from the rail worker, or I should say rail workers, make it plural, and you were to go in during a press briefing and you were actually given the opportunity to ask a question or make a statement, and you were to do it on behalf of those people, what would you say to Caroline Leavitt if you were defending the rail workers?
Well, one of the things that I've been trying to, now I've been at a lot of the press meetings, I've gotten to ask Caroline questions before, but one of the things that since the One Big Beautiful Bill that I've been trying to get an answer from either Speaker Mike Johnson's team, other senators that haven't been able to give me an answer down there, is that the One Big Beautiful Bill, no tax on overtime, doesn't apply to railroaders. And that is because us on the railroad, we don't work under the Fair Labor Act. We work under the Railway Labor Act. So guys like us, I've never paid a nickel into Social Security, for instance. We pay into railroad retirement. So we have nothing to do with Social Security. We're like a separate entity, and we don't work under the Fair Labor Act, which is what the no tax on overtime was included. So we're out. So none of us guys are getting that. So my thing was like, why can't we make, and I know there has been, I forget the senator, I think it was a Democrat that was originally trying to make an amendment to that bill. It never made it to the floor, but now there's talks about it, but no one's pushing the issue about trying to get an amendment to that bill or trying to get a separate bill that'll include the railroaders under that, because it would mean a lot, because a lot of the guys that work overtime on there would benefit greatly from that, but they're missing out on one of the key celebrating points there of Trump helping the workers. So that's my number one issue that I have going on.
So let's have a couple minutes here left. Let's talk about your experience at the White House. I mean, every time that you go down there, you're picking up the expense on your own. It's not a cheap thing to go from Jersey on the Amtrak down to Washington, D.C. and back. It's a lot of time on you. Why do you do it?
Well, number one, I'm honored that I get a chance to participate in it. It's funny because my kids will look at me now when I'll be like, hey, I'm going down to the White House tomorrow. It's nothing like, you know what I mean? It's like they just, is Dad, you going to the White House tomorrow? Like in the beginning, it was like, holy shit, Dad's going down to the White House. Like, that lost all its luster. But I'm honored to be there, man. I love to get a chance to go in there and try to get a question and get a feel of what's going on there. It's history. And I'm the only railroader there. I'm the only blue collar guy ever in the room. So I'm coming at it from a totally different perspective. And what's different is the first Trump administration, I got in there and I had to be the only, maybe, I don't know of any other podcasters that were at the White House during that first administration. I don't know if there were any other ones. I certainly didn't see any ones down there. It was all just mainstream media broadcasters. But I weaseled my way in, and I was able to get the passes. Now I was doing First Class Fatherhood, obviously. Then I didn't have the Alec Lace show. I was just focusing on the fatherhood stuff. But a totally different atmosphere this administration as opposed to that one, because I was kind of looked at like podcaster. What is this guy doing here? Like, I was kind of, and they knew I was a Trump supporter. And so they were kind of like, everyone kind of like shunned me. There was a totally different atmosphere. This time around, it's, so many different podcasters, so many different influencers, or what do you call it? Independent media. And there's a good split between people that are Trump supporters, or if you want to call them neutral, as opposed to the hardcore liberals that are there. So there's a different vibe to it. I also had a chance this year to bring my daughter for Bring Your Kid to Work Day. She got a chance to ask Caroline Levitt a question during the briefing she did with the kids. So that was really cool for her. She got to go to school and tell her friends that she went to the White House. So, I mean, I'm always honored and grateful. I mean, listen, I still love this country. I want to be a part of the solution. So I love to try to be there, soak it in, try to ask questions and see what I can do down there. But I'll continue to go in the new year. I've got a hard pass now, so I can just swipe in and get in there, which is pretty cool. So I love being around it.
How often do you go down?
I have to watch with the sick days and the vacation time that I have to take off the job, because what I've done, and this isn't how insane it is, and I promised myself I wouldn't keep doing it, but I'll get out of work at 3:00 in the morning. Okay. So then I'll make it over to the Amtrak train at 6 a.m. and I'll take that 6 a.m. train down to Washington, D.C. I go to the White House. I stay there for the briefing. I get back on the train and I come back and go to work at 7 p.m. And it's like almost like a 48-hour run for me of like almost no sleep, a couple hours on the train if I can get it. And I did that a few times and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't play this game like I used to when I was much younger. And so it took a toll. So I have to either take a day off either the night before or the night of the press briefing. The problem is they don't give you the press briefing schedule until like 10 o'clock at night when I'm already at work. So it'll be like, oh, there's a press briefing tomorrow. And I'm like, all right, well, now I got to try to put in and find somebody to cover my shift. So I don't want to go into a long story about it, but I try to go down as often as I can for the press briefings. I try to time it with the press briefings. They usually have one once a week. I try to make one once a month at least, or two.
Okay. And so ultimately for you, it's not about the money, because there's really no money to be made. It's an expense. But it makes you feel a level of patriotism that you're it's patriotic that you're getting to do it. Number two is you're staying in the game, you're meeting the good people. Going forward with your own program, have you still been focusing in on doing interviews with? I mean, you still have I see all the heads behind you. Are you interviewing more senators and House members on a regular basis?
Yeah, and part of that is at the White House. So at the White House, I had a chance to interview Tom Homan, Elena Haba, Linda McMahon. So I've been able to, hit a few. It's Sean Duffy. So I've been able to pull a lot of interviews just from being there at the White House as well. So that's opened it up. But yeah, I still do interviews. I still have a lot of the congressmen, a lot of the senators, or different, whoever, and anybody in the political field still coming on the show. That's mainly what I focus on.
So you have these senators and House members on, and I mean, they're very courteous with giving you time. But do you feel as if when you're going through these interviews with them, that it's almost just like rinse and repeat the same thing, that you're just getting talking points? Do you ever feel like you penetrate through and really get somebody to say, you know what, man? Yeah, I voted for Trump, but I'm pissed. I don't like what he's doing. Or do you always feel like you just get the platitudes?
It depends on who you're interviewing. And but listen, the politicians are very good at answering questions by saying a lot of words and saying nothing. I mean, they're very good at that, and you can get a sense of that. You basically, when you sit down with them, like I just went to that Republican study committee. I was there interviewing a bunch of congressmen and stuff. And it's like, you pretty much are like, hey, can you say some viral shit here so we can make something, you know what I mean? Like, can you, but they fall back to those talking. But now some of them don't. Tim Burchett is the best one. Tim Burchett he'll come off the cuff and he'll say things as they are. And I love interviewing him. He's been on multiple times. Always great to get him back on. Tommy Tuberville is another one that will come off the cuff with some stuff. So there's ones that I know I'm going to get a little bit of more of an entertaining, not entertaining, but more realism out of than some of the ones. And some of the ones that are very cookie cutter in their answers, I try not to have them back on, because it's like, what am I doing here? We're not really getting anywhere. But you do get a sense of that when you're talking to them.
All right. So if, people who are new to you, who haven't been with me for a while, I picked up a lot of new people. So where can they follow you, Alec, if they want to follow the program and follow you online?
Yeah, I do the show Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:00 on Rumble. That's where I put it up first. And then I post, I do shorter videos during the week. So it's not like I take the rest of the week off of the politics, but I find like I don't need to do a whole show. I could just hit what's viral and I'll put that on X. So I've been building up over there on X, posting more over on X at Alec Lace. Those are the two places I really focus on, is Rumble and X.
Have you seen the difference in Washington, D.C.? Does it feel more cleaned up now that Trump did his thing?
1,000%, Dennis, because I take the train to Union Station and I walk from Union Station to the White House. It's about a 45-minute walk because I like to have a cigar. So I'll walk down and have a cigar. And prior to that, there's two spots on the walk down there where it's like, okay, it's almost like we're in the South Bronx here. We got to be on our guard, especially when you're walking in a three-piece suit, Now, since that's happened, no issues. Walk through them same spots. Not that you don't have to have a care in the world, but you're not on guard like you were. There's definitely been a difference.
Good. All right. Well, make sure you stay in touch with me. Let me know what's going on. Have a great New Year. Thanks for joining me, and Merry Christmas to your entire family.
Always a pleasure. God bless you, Dennis.
All right, buddy. All right, that's it for us. Please don't forget, go to teamdml.com to become a member if you're not already. And for those of you who are looking to really get geared up for 2026, we got a couple more shows for you before the new year next week. So make sure you tune in, and every day at 10 a.m. and plus the other shows, like I just with Mary, and the whole lineup of what we've got going is at teamdml.com. So take a look at it, please. Till next time, hopefully on Monday, enjoy yourself and have a great weekend. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.